Hey everybody, this is XD Fun 1 on the XD Fun channel. I'm here today back with my Titan. I'm going to the Dreadnought. Last video I talked about potential story for the next Destiny DLC. This video I wanted to talk about possible new subclasses. Connecting back to the story, I was talking about how the darkness that's coming from this combination of the Cabal and the Vex would be too strong. So the Strangers group, who has become involved again, tells us we need a stronger light. Now, the first question is, where would we get this stronger light? And I think we have a very good answer in the form of Eris Morn. She would tell us that we have access to a strong resource of light because we have killed the Taken King and essentially rightfully become the new Taken King. We would go on a few missions and gain the power of the Taken Light. That's what this video is going to be primarily about, is Taken subclasses. I actually have another idea, but we'll talk about that in the next video. With the Taken subclasses, I have a few ideas, very loose, not very concrete, mostly things that I just personally would like to see, things my buddies and I have talked about before, and things that I think would be very enjoyable to have in subclasses. The big primary feature that I only recently thought about is normally with the subclasses it revolves around a damage type. Well, with these subclasses I see them not dealing with just one damage type, but all three. How would this work, you may ask? That would be based around what you pick and choose on different things. You'd have 3 different grenades that do 3 different damage types, 3 different super editions that do 3 different damage types, and such and so forth, giving you a very rounded guardian that can deal with possibly every situation. While this can end up kind of overpowered, it can be a reduced elemental damage. About a third of the elemental damage that would normally be there. Now moving directly into the classes, I wanted to start off with the one I have possibly the most thoroughly thought out, and that's the Hunter. I even have a name for it. I was thinking that Phantom would be a really good name for a Taken subclass Hunter. Now, what would the Phantom do? I always thought that one of the most annoying Taken enemies is the Taken Scion, and that's where the super comes in for the Phantom. The super would be called Shadow, and essentially what you would do is make a copy of yourself. This copy would not be as strong as you, but still do a decent amount of damage and have a little bit more intelligence than the game's basic AI. It would assist you in PvE and PvP. I actually see one of the additions, possibly Void or Arc, giving you invisibility when you use the super. Of course, this invisibility would go away when you fire your weapon or attempt to do a melee or run. The other part is that in a PvE situation, the enemies of darkness, the minions of darkness, would focus primarily on the gonna kill this knight here. Primarily focus on the shadow. While you, invisible, can move around. While this may seem relatively overpowered, the invisibility is mostly to make the perk viable in a PvP situation. Getting my E's and my P's mixed up. The PvP situation, they would know essentially what is your doppelganger and what is you. So adding invisibility in there would assist in making the super a little more relevant in a PvP situation, let alone having some kind of addition that gives it more life or more damage output. Now, moving on to another class, the Titan, which I'm playing right now. The Titan I don't have as fluently figured out, but I'm somewhat borrowing from an existing subclass, and that is the Blade Dancer. With the super in the Titan subclass, it would be called Will Breaker, just as a nod towards the Taken King's sword. You would summon forth a Taken sword that deals massive amounts of damage and elemental damage depending on what addition you may have added. I see Arc making a shockwave, perhaps. The solar maybe leaving behind burn, or even just causing a large area of effect and explosion. With Void, I actually want to give the Titan subclass something that the Titan does not have: Blink. The Titan, I believe, deserves a blink somewhere in its repertoire of combat prowess. Though, yes, it could be fairly overpowered in the sense that if another player manages to blink directly in front of you with their Titan and melee you, it's a lot of damage. But it can be balanced out, shorten the distance, or maybe have a little bit more time on a melee animation right after a blink, just to even out the playing field slightly. Now with the Warlock, this is the most not completely thought out class that I have, though I do have a relatively interesting super. The super would mostly be used for ad control, as it would be a one-shot, much like the Voidwalker. It would rain down Taken bolts of energy from the sky in just a general area. I'm thinking mostly around yourself. That way it's not directly like the Voidwalker Nova Bomb ability, and more like the Striker, where the area effect is around you. You'd have Arc Bolts, Void Bolts, and Solar Bolts that, depending on the addition that you use. Primarily what I'd like to see from this is the versatility of having the option within one class to have potentially all of the elemental types. While yes, this can remove the need for certain things, like having to have that void shotgun when you're dealing with the Nightfall and it has void burn. But it also leaves open for a lot of creativity and strategizing. Now, how coming about this Taken Light would mostly come through missions and things, much like the Taken King DLC. But I don't see it happening in just one mission. I see it taking place over time, and you not necessarily unlocking the nodes and the perks just through leveling up, but through progression through the storyline and gaining bits and parts of power from the Taken Light. That's all I have today for the Taken classes. Next, I'll talk about possibly a more viable subclass type, and that would come directly from the Strangers group itself. Be sure to stay tuned and look into that video. Once again, like, subscribe, and I do hope you enjoyed the video. I will leave a link in the description for the last video, and see you later.